You were busy. Thank you.
I think we'll go ahead and we'll show it's 1 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting together. Today is Monday, March 2nd, 2015. This is the regular trustee meeting, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have an agenda before us for today's meeting. Are there any additions, changes, modifications?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Move to approve the payroll of March 4th, 2015, the amount of $280,722.91.
Second.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
No.
Move to approve the bills in the amount of $46,971.79.
Second.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes. This time we ask any citizens that are here to speak. Anyone like to speak? Go ahead, just step up to the podium, give us your name and address.
Okay.
And you have approximately 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Dee Jane Miller. I'm at 1460 Ludlow Road. I'm calling I was here in September regarding the 1490 property of Ronald Newport. And at that time, I believe that it was declared a nuisance. The property, I've been working with Ed. To date, nothing has been done. And so I'd like to know, what the status is. And, there's still huge amounts of concrete, asphalt, trash, new vehicles in there, still running business. It's just it's a mess.
And what's I know we know it, but just for the record, what's the address?
His address, 1490 Ludlow.
Ludlow. Thank you.
Because when I was here last time, I believe you guys said that you're going to give him 8 days to clean it up, and nothing has been done since then. Nothing. I mean, it's literally the same. Everything is the same.
Okay. We actually have it as one of our agenda items to talk about and get an update from Mr. Amrine and the administrator. Okay. So if you'd like, stick with us for a little bit, and you'll hear that with the rest of us. Thank you, though.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else? Moving on to old business, we have the PSISN agreement.
Thank you, Board. On page 4 in the beginning of your packet is the board summary that was prepared by the committee, and I believe it was actually prepared by one of our prosecutors, Ms. Stephanie Hayden. In your packet is the updated agreement from and signed by the Board of County Commissioners. Ms. Hayden from the prosecutor's office is here, as well as the Greene County Sheriff, to answer any questions the board may have in regards to the PSISN agreement.
That's why you look familiar.
It was 3 hair colors ago, I think.
I have the same problem.
Yeah, it's a common problem.
I don't have any questions. The only question I would have on the agreement is it one that you as township administrator and Chief Vandenboss as fire chief feel that is beneficial and will satisfy most of the needs of the township?
Yes, as we discussed last meeting, and Chief gave his recommendation last meeting that he recommends moving forward with it. After reviewing, and I did attend the county commissioners meeting in regards to this topic, I do recommend moving forward with this as well. And this has to go, as you can see on the signature page, this has to go through several jurisdictions. So obviously the county commissioners were first, Beavercreek Township is next. City of Beavercreek, I believe, is coming up as well.
And the city of Xenia actually passed it this past Thursday night. So I still have to get a signature from them. The city of Beavercreek is scheduled a week from today.
Okay.
Were there any material changes from what we looked at last time?
There's a few changes.
Yeah.
Okay, can you go over just the changes so we can at least
The
know?
changes were that they removed the Greene County prosecutors from the additional parties. And then with respect to membership of the advisory board, the agreement we looked at last time said that there would be police and fire chiefs from the additional parties and a representative from the Greene County Prosecutor's Office. That's now changed to a designee of each additional party, so one designee from each of the parties. I think that those are the only two real changes.
Nothing though as far as other jurisdictions, other municipalities or townships?
There is a provision that talks about if there are the other entities that come in to the agreement, that would be negotiated separately, and then if they were to pay to be part of the agreement, that amount would come off of the county commissioner's portion.
Oh. That's cute.
Sure.
That's been in there all along.
Okay.
The county doubles most everybody else's share, so 7 years ago when we started, it was written in to reduce the county share to get them on the level playing field.
Sure.
Which this is still not going to reduce down to your level.
Okay.
Not for the participating partners, if you would. It would be just county commissioners, to whom they are now paying. If those people pay in, it would reduce the share that the county's paying. It doesn't get divided across the board proportionally. Understand that. Okay.
Did you have any questions?
With that, I would move to approve the agreement, PSISN agreement as presented.
FYI, to add, authorize the township administrator to sign on behalf of the board.
So agreed to.
And you seconded.
A second.
Ms. Graf?
Yes.
Mr. Paxton? Mr. Kretz?
Yes. Thank you.
Why not? Absolutely. Stay for the whole meeting.
Anything else on that? We're finished with that one, so we'll move on then to an update and discussion on Ludlow Road nuisance declaration.
Good afternoon, board. Just a little background. On September 2nd of last year, the board approved a nuisance declaration against the property mentioned by Ms. Miller at 1490 Ludlow Road. In that declaration, 4 offenses were listed. 2 of them have been, in my opinion, taken care of by the owner of the property, in the sense that one of the complaints was in fact an agricultural usage and not subject to my authority. The other was a junk vehicle that the owner managed to start while I was there. Unbelievably, I didn't expect it to happen, but it did. That leaves 2 items to be cleared under the nuisance declaration. The first is the dumping of construction debris, asphalt and concrete chunks mainly. And while it's a nuisance under the township declaration, confusion resulted from the fact that it is an allowable practice under EPA regulations and the health department following on the EPA regulations to store concrete and asphalt in piles on a property for up to 2 years. Now, the condition there is that if the debris is to be spread out and used, for example, as a base for driveways and things like that, then a notice of intent has to be filed with the health department to allow that to happen. The owner was aware of this. He contacted the health department, received the application forms for the notice of intent filing, but never returned them to the health department. And the piles remain largely in the same place that they are now, that they were back in September. I recently visited and in fact caught the owner present at the time and had a brief conversation with him, during which he assured me that he intends to haul the stuff away again rather than spread it out. So that's why he didn't follow through with the notice of intent with the health department. The fourth and final issue, and maybe the most difficult one, is our contention, our belief that the owner is operating a business on the property without a conditional use permit, a landscaping business. There are a number of landscapers operating in Beavercreek Township on agriculturally zoned land using a conditional use permit. We have reason to believe that this owner is doing likewise. We have not yet gathered what would rise to the level of proof. And one of the things we're here today to do is talk about whether or not we want to do that. So the situation remains largely unresolved. We see, when we visit, we see numbers of vehicles parked there during the day with identification as being landscaping company Newport's Lawn and Landscaping. Other vehicles that don't have such identification, but they're dump trucks and landscaping equipment. There's also landscaping equipment stored in the barn that's with the door left open. So we can see that there's equipment there. In the interim, during a couple of conversations with Ms. Frick, with legal counsel, we've become aware of, frankly, a problem within our zoning resolution, a problem that might make the nuisance declaration unenforceable in its current form. And that is a case law that dates back to the 80s, indicating that townships do not have the right to create a crime. And what that means, where the rubber hits the road, is that language in our code in chapter 19.07 that says any person, etc., violating any of the provisions of this resolution or any amendments thereto, etc., are guilty of a minor violation constitutes a misdemeanor. That language apparently is not legal for a township to have, and apparently there are numbers of townships who have changed that language in recent years upon discovery that we're not permitted to create a crime. Now, we can say that there's a violation of the zoning ordinance, but we can't call it a misdemeanor. We can levy fines if the court agrees with us, but we can't call it a misdemeanor. So my proposal today before you, and legal counsel can fill you in on the details of what our options are for proceeding as we choose to do so. But my proposal is twofold. First of all, let's get this language corrected in the resolution. I'll be presenting you with language at your next meeting that that strikes the misdemeanor language in favor of language that says it's a violation of the zoning resolution and so forth, and also eliminates other uses of the word illegal in the code, so that if and when we choose to move forward with prosecution based on our own code, the code itself is a legal code. The second part of the recommendation that I would make, this text amendment would become effective pretty much as the weather changes and landscaping activity resumes at pace in the township. I've been up a couple of times. I don't see activity. That's largely a function of the weather. And so I think an initial period of surveillance on my part to confirm activity such as the coming and going of employees, the parking of their cars for the day, and activities like that, the movement of equipment off the property. We've seen equipment on the property. We have not seen employees' cars. We have not witnessed firsthand the departure and or arrival of said equipment. And we anticipate that should we move forward with prosecution, that the owner is going to fight it. He has indicated that his next step upon such announcement would be to contact his attorney. And so we need to be fully prepared to enter a legal battle. If we are contending that he is operating an illegal business on the property, the burden of proof for establishing that is ours. It's not his burden of proof to deny it. It's ours to establish that it's true. And so that's why the second suggestion for surveillance to confirm in our minds beyond reasonable doubt that such a business is in fact operating on that property. His contention is that he uses that property merely as storage for his equipment. And in checking as deeply as I can into any resolutions we operate under, that's not illegal, storing of equipment. So just the parking of the vehicles is not in itself a violation. It would be the operation of the business. So we have to establish that that business is being operated there. Yes.
Have you seen any advertising that he's done as a business that it would indicate an address?
That address has in fact appeared in some advertising, as have 3 other addresses for that business. As I said in September, one of those addresses is fictitious, another is a post office box. I find it hard to believe that employees of a landscaper report to a post office box in the morning for work. But, you know, he is saying that the post office box is in fact his business address. That strikes me as something that's in our favor when we make our, what we would have to do is make a case for probable cause before the municipal court in Fairborn. Although that's one of perhaps 3 different choices we have. And I'll let legal counsel talk to us about what the choices would be when we get to that point. But in my mind, establishing probable cause is the issue here. I believe he's operating the business from that site. He says he's not. We have to prove it. It's really that simple. So let's get the language changed in here. Let's approve my surveillance of the property once the weather breaks and the language has been changed, so that we can establish whether or not we think the business is actually and in fact being operated at that address rather than one of the other 3 addresses that various websites have for that business. And then we'll decide to proceed to prosecute the zoning violation.
When this came before us in the beginning, I thought there were, I'm going to say, about 5 major issues. Were there cars up on blocks? Okay.
I believe there were at the time, and they're
in the
not
pictures.
right
I remember
now.
in the pictures there were cars up on blocks. There was
It was a tractor, I believe.
or
There was
something.
a
Yeah,
tractor
some kind of a
on blocks.
vehicle, motorized vehicle up on
Yeah.
blocks. There was a mowing and a maintenance issue. There was damage to the road or the lane that's shared by the other property owners. There were dead animals and debris and road debris and other construction debris that were strewn about the property.
Right.
So the cars have been remedied. They are gone, or the tractor is still up on blocks.
Tractor's gone.
Okay.
But the 4Runner.
Has it been replaced by something
Yeah,
else?
there's an International Scout that remains parked there, and that's the one. He didn't start it, he got it to turn over for me while it was there. To me, that means it's not junk.
In
But-
the maintenance, the damage and/or maintenance to the road, is there anything that we can do about that if there's not
No.
if there's not a maintenance agreement in
That's a
place
civil
with the
matter
property?
entirely. That's
what I'm
a
saying, that's a-
subject.
I don't know if you have anything in your, do you have a maintenance agreement on that road in your?
He
okay.
doesn't even own it. He doesn't own that road. The guy behind me owns it. It goes with the property on Trayvine Road.
Okay, but he's damaging it with his heavy trucks. But so
That is a
the,
civil
so the
thing.
property behind you hasn't,
Yeah, I have talked to the attorney, that is a civil thing. But my concern is that there's wave runners out in weeds, there's old buildings, all this stuff does nothing but have rats come up to my barn. It's, that kind of stuff, and weeds and trash being all over, and just get going on, but,
And the health department has investigated that piece and found that, I don't know how thorough their investigation was, but what they effectively said is, we can't find a source of food, so we can't prosecute on the basis of a presence of a rat or two. And so, I mean, we do have photos of one living rat and one dead rat on the property. And so, yeah, they're there. At what point that rises to a zoning code violation, I don't know. From the perspective of the neighbor, of Ms. Miller and her husband, I share their frustration. I think that it's a tough situation to live in when all they really want is for the property to be cleaned up. From the perspective of the township, we want some cleanup, but we're mostly concerned with the operation of an illegal business that sets a precedent for others. If one doesn't need a permit, a conditional use permit, then nobody needs a conditional use permit. So, and goodness knows, there are others out there. This is the one we're acting on partly because we have a complaint. We don't go out looking for illegal landscapers operating on agricultural property. This one we're aware of. And so there just happens to be a couple of other violations there. So the two issues are cleanup and a conditional use permit, and how they come together, if they come together, in the prosecution of this violation.
On the first part of your presentation, with changing the language, did the law at some point change from allowing us to have misdemeanors? If not, because somehow I remember way back that it was taken right out of the code, that those sections reflected what was in the Ohio Revised Code.
What they reflect is the amount of fines that can be levied for it, but it essentially is akin to a civil fine. It is not a criminal fine, and there is nowhere in the code. Now, with respect to your urban or home rule townships, it specifically states those townships cannot create criminal violations, criminal codes. With respect to other townships, there just is no authority. And so there's this old case out of actually our district, I believe, maybe not, I don't recall, but that says because there's no authority, you cannot make it a...
Montgomery County.
Yeah, you cannot make it a misdemeanor. Okay. I don't believe the code ever said that it could be made a misdemeanor.
Okay.
It just allows for the fine.
Okay, it's just been there for a very, 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 very long time.
Well, I think the opinions...
When are you going to bring us the changes so that we can get them?
I'll bring the draft of the text amendment up to your next meeting.
Okay.
And I think the change that Ms. Frick is referring to, the opinion, the case law that you're referring to is from the mid-'80s, is that correct? It's old, so...
But it's still good law.
I predated that one. I'm thinking of the 70s is when I remember going in.
Right. So I just want to offer assurances that we're not dropping this, we're not letting it go. We have procedural hurdles we have to clear before we can resume prosecution. But should we manage to accumulate evidence that rises to the level of proof, we will proceed with, I think, I mean, I won't speak for the board, but it would be my recommendation to proceed with prosecution, so.
Ed, let me ask you a quick question, though. If he came and requested a conditional use, do we have grounds to deny it?
That would be a matter for the BZA to decide. Yes, they could deny a conditional use permit for that use.
There's not precedent already set for that?
I'm sorry?
There's not enough precedent already set that...
Make us a condition.
The BZA,
Yeah, obviously
frankly,
they can
does
set
not
conditions.
have a lot of pleasant experience with regard to conditional use permits for landscapers in the Ag District.
But they could set conditions, yeah.
Which I have.
Right, and they can approve with conditions, and I think we would urge, if we can talk the owner into filing such an application, we would urge fairness and an open mind, I suppose, rather than making decisions based on other folks' behavior in the past. But we can't control their vote.
Okay. So do you have at least the update? It's not necessarily, it's not the answer you were looking for, but at least you understand where the township is at.
Right. One question, I just want to clarify. Regarding the asphalt and concrete, what is, he's saying he'll get rid of it. What kind, did he give you a timeline, or how do we, you know, I mean, because he can say that and never do it, just like everything else, so.
Well, he has up to...
Right, when we get back to that, I mean, our resolution allows us to articulate deadlines as short as 5 days. I think maybe a couple of weeks would be more reasonable, but that's what we would do. I would approach Mr. Newport and say, look, you said you were going to get rid of it. It's been declared a nuisance. We intend to force its removal. Will you commit to getting rid of it in 2 weeks, or do we have to do it for you? And that's the way we proceed, something like that.
But doesn't the EPA say he has 2 years?
Yeah, that was one of my question. Then the EPA says it has 2 years?
But he has to file that permit.
The EPA says you can store clean, hard fill for up to 2 years.
So they hadn't filed that?
He has not filed that.
Oh.
He has not filed appropriate paperwork with the health department for that 2-year storage. So when we clarified that hadn't been done yet, we went back to him and he said he was going to remove it totally off his property. So now if he turns around and files with the health department the appropriate paperwork and they approve it, then it could be stored there for 2 years.
I just want her to know what, and that's an EPA issue that we can't override.
Can't the health department go back to when it was first stored and say the 2 years started if they have some verification? At least we know it was there in September, or have some date that, you know, from which it really started.
They inspected it at the time, and they have dated inspection reports from that time. So, yeah, I presume, excuse me, my assumption would be that it would date from those initial inspections.
They could easily go back 2, 3, 4 years on GIS and verify if the piles are where they are now. But will they? I don't know.
Well, it's difficult.
It probably
because,
won't be visible.
Yeah.
There's fairly thick tree cover where the stuff is dumped. You won't see it from the aerial photographs. No.
Okay.
Now, the question is, if he doesn't file the permit and does not remove it as promised, then the board has already approved for the township to go in and remove that. But we got to make sure we're clear on legal ground that with the EPA as well as the health department, he has not filled out the appropriate paperwork. And he could do it the day of when the equipment shows up too.
Right.
So, and that's of course a funding liability on the township, because not only we're going to have to go in there and remove it, we're going to have to find a place to dispose of it as well.
So with the board's concurrence, those are the next several steps I'll take in this, and I'll have language for a text amendment at your next meeting.
Okay. I wish we had a better answer for you.
Because I don't get what my property is worth going by that every day. once you guys are off of it, it'll just go back. It will. I mean, he's dumped chemicals in the ground, everything. His dogs have died. It's just horrible.
Okay. Well, we have to work within the constraints of what we're permitted to do, and then we can encourage others to do what they're supposed to do. But unfortunately, it's not a situation where we can always please everyone. So I empathize with you, and I'm sure Mr. Amrine will continue to do everything that we're empowered to do and able to do, and we'll keep you informed along the way. Okay, and feel free to stay in touch with us as well. All right, and you can help in that surveillance process as well. So
I have already secured permission to use their property as a point of surveillance, which is actually an excellent site. It beats the heck out of sitting out on Ludlow Road,
right,
watching the folks go in and out. So if I can go back the driveway at the end of Mr. Newport's property onto the Kennedy's property and have a very good vantage point for it.
right. And if you believe that there's a lot of wildlife and you like filming wildlife, you can put up a wildlife camera that'll film a lot of that wildlife that walks in between your two properties. So, okay.
I like the wildlife, just not the rats.
That's wild.
Yeah, it'll pick up everything.
Yeah.
So, good luck to you.
If you believe there's a chemical issue, dumping
I
a
have called
chemical.
EPA.
I'm sorry?
I have called EPA.
She
I have
has.
called EPA.
Okay, well, there's a Department of Agriculture as well
Okay.
that, that's where the licensing and the documentation of what you use and all
I
that
reported
stuff.
to them too, they took his license away.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
they're,
and anybody who applies chemicals
Has to sign.
has to
And
be
then he took his
certified.
wife's name and then they took it away from her, so.
Has to be certified and licensed and trained on an annual basis.
well,
to
not in the
treat-
documentation, what they use and all that
Right.
stuff. I mean, there's-
Yeah, but I did report it to them because of that,
Yeah.
and they took his license away, they put his wife's name, but she's a nurse at Mon Valley Hospital, and then they took it away from her. I don't know if they found out or what, but, you know, he just the stuff he does, is just, you know, it's not right. It's not
Okay.
good.
All right, well, we'll monitor, continue to monitor, do what we can, and good luck in the meantime. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Janet.
Moving on the agenda, we have no new business, so we'll go right to the administrator and BZA reappointment.
Thank you, Board. In your packet is a resolution to reappoint one of our BZA members. We did contact him. He wishes to continue as an alternate. He wants to get a little more experience under his belt before moving up to one of the regular positions. So he has agreed to stay on as an alternate. And as of this morning, I know I notified the board that we have a few vacancies on regular members as well. We received a couple based on sending the emails to the Homeowners Association, received at least now up to 3, possibly 4 people interested in filling the vacancies.
Okay.
Good.
Did you send them the applications and?
Yes, you can download them right off the website, so they were directed to do that.
Did we put that up on social media
Yes.
at all? Okay.
Yeah, it was first posted on the website and social media at the same time. We had one person come in, take an application, never came back. And then just last week, we sent it to the Homeowners Associations.
Good.
And got a response from a few members.
Very good.
All right, so,
Are the people who are presently serving, well, I guess the 2 that resigned have completely resigned. They're
Yes.
not going to serve till someone is appointed in their...
That's correct. Mr. Henderson moved out of the township, so
He's out.
he's out. So, and then the other obviously was the same situation, moved from Beavercreek Township to Sugar Creek Township.
And the alternates are just sitting in for...
That's
the
correct.
positions at this point.
That's correct.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I make the motion to reappoint Frank Fitzgerald as the alternate to Beavercreek Township Board of Zone of Appeals for a term expiring March 31st, 2020.
Second.
Okay.
Second?
I'll get it all. Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Ms. Graf?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes. And next on the agenda, the IT independent contractor agreement.
Thank you, Board. As in the budget hearings, as you recall, that motion was made to negotiate with our IT contractor for a full year at his current rate. You'll find that starting on page 17 of your packet. It is at his current rate at $32 an hour, not to exceed 40 hours of pay period. That allows some flexibility of coming in and doing some nighttime updates during downtimes for the township. The other change, we changed the maximum total hours like in the previous contracts on page 18. And one of the things that the contractor would like to see instead of a 30-day notice is a 14-day notice to terminate the agreement between, and it allows both sides to do the same.
So we're going with page 18 where it says a 14-day written notice?
Yeah.
That's what we're proceeding
Yes.
with? Okay,
Yeah.
that's, because, okay.
Move
And go ahead and make a motion, we'll have discussion.
move to approve the agreement for independent contractual services for IT as presented to the board, and to have the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
I have a couple questions real quick. So on the, we have a maximum of 44, we have a term of 44 weeks or a maximum of 880 hours total worked. That's up to,
That's correct.
we're not obligated to pay for 880 hours if we don't use 880 hours.
That's correct. It's the same provisions that were in the last agreement, just the hours have changed.
I understand. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that I understand that correctly.
Yeah. So for example, if we didn't need them for a month, there would
Says a
not be a
maximum.
charge for.
I just want to make sure that doesn't, from a legal standpoint, that doesn't obligate us. We have an independent contractor that doesn't obligate us to,
No,
okay.
no, I was just rereading it.
Okay. Any other discussion?
The 40 hours of pay, refresh me. We discussed that, or that was his change?
No, we switched it to 40 hours at pay period so that, it could be flexed through the weeks. So he could max out in 1 week.
That was gonna be my
But
question.
over a
So-
2-week period, he
Yeah.
won't put any more, we won't pay any more than 40 hours.
That's correct.
We could,
So,
he
and
could only
we
work.
keep track of that to make sure, and Mr. Erickson does as well as Mr. Terry, to ensure that we're not exceeding that amount.
All right. I guess my concern was if we had like a catastrophic lightning strike and it took more than 40 hours 1 week to get some stuff back up and get it going, have 40 hours in the pay period.
If they had to go over that, it'd be at your discretion, or the township administrator,
Oh.
if we had to add.
Just to like an emergency. Otherwise, where would we fall if it were over 40? Will we owe him overtime?
No.
I mean, what,
No.
overtime?
Only if it's on a per week basis.
Right.
Okay,
That goes by the week.
all right.
But if he did his 40, he already did his 40 hours in the first week, and the lightning strike happens in the second week, then we have a problem.
Catastrophic.
Well, you'd have you'd have to pay him per hour, but you still wouldn't have to pay him overtime unless he went over 80 hours in the pay period.
Okay.
All right.
Certificate of originals.
Any other discussion? You can call.
All right.
Okay, I'll move to approve the contract. Well, I did.
We already have a motion on the table.
Yeah.
You can call.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes. Greene County Sheriff's Office report.
Thank you, Board. On page 21 in your packet begins the biweekly report from the Sheriff's Office. I don't know if there's any questions in regards to anything in the Sheriff's Office or any response the Sheriff's Office may have completed during that 2-week time period.
What does extra patrol mean?
Extra patrol could be anything that they received, for example, suspicious cars patrolling the neighborhoods. They'll actually sit out there. Sometimes it could be speeders in the area. and they'll just patrol the area a little more, so they're seen. And it's hard to see that vehicle until it turns its lights on, and then it's really seen.
This information, is it published by the, is this public information that's readily available on the sheriff's site?
No, this, I mean, it is per, someone could do a public records request to get this information through the sheriff's office, but this is per the agreement between the, and this goes back to the original agreement between the township and the sheriff, is that he was to provide monthly reports. So we just broke it down into bi-weekly reports like the rest of the staff does.
Okay. My only concern is that, I mean, looking through these over the last several, occasionally there's something such as like a domestic violence or a suicide attempt or something like that. And so my concern is that I don't want to put information out there that shouldn't be put out there or could compromise someone. So it does have an address. It does have an address, but it doesn't, obviously you're right, it doesn't show any names on the report itself. This essentially, for example, even like dispatch information, they're subject to public records request as well. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure we weren't putting somebody in jeopardy, that it wasn't information that couldn't already be gotten anyway. So. Yeah, I mean the PSAP centers have run into this several times on public records requests. Just what you're stating there, Mr. Kretz, is that the addresses are there, and quite frankly, with the internet, you can determine. But you can hear the call. Yeah, exactly, and if you have the ability to listen to calls either through the internet or with a scanner as well. So. So yes, this is the minimum information that the sheriff feels comfortable providing that will be released in a public manner. Okay. Any questions on the report?
No. Seem to stay busy.
The hunting program update.
Yes, Board, I have not heard back from ODNR. However, I've done some additional research, and quite frankly, at this time, based on what I've seen, is I don't think we're going to be able to allow hunting on our publicly owned property. It is available through private owned, but we're still waiting on ODNR to give us a legal opinion whether we can. ODNR does allow, as mentioned last time, through their property in one site in this area, and that's down in Spring Valley in regards to, and that's trapping, not shooting.
And we're talking about coyotes.
Coyotes, yes, we're talking about coyotes. No, we're not talking about deer. They're allowed that throughout the state of Ohio, and even on publicly owned land. So for coyotes, until really putting a policy together, I don't feel comfortable until I officially hear something from ODNR, legal department. But the research that I've been conducting on this topic, it doesn't look like it's an option for us, at least when it comes to coyotes. Trapping, maybe. I don't think shooting will be.
Any other questions on that topic? No. Is the next year appointments?
Yes, one of the there's two appointments here. Obviously, one of them is to the Health Department District Advisory Council that Ms. Graff has been attending for several years. I put it on there just to let the board know that that is an appointment, and Ms. Graff had indicated that she'd be willing to stay on there as a committee member.
I think as I emailed everyone, it's essentially one meeting a year. Gets the groups, representatives from all as many townships as they can possibly get, plus the cities and the county, to discuss the budget for the health department and the assessment, which has not changed for jurisdiction for many years now, and to approve those. So it's a 2-hour at most appointment if you would. I'll be happy to go, and I think it's 17th, I forget the date.
Okay, do I need to make a motion?
Make a motion.
Okay. And I would make a motion because we do that with all our appointments and everything. That's why I had it on the agenda.
All right, I'll make a motion to reappoint Ms. Graff for the Health Department District Advisory Council, 2015.
Guess I can second it.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes. And the next one?
Yes, Board, I was contacted by the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Environmental Restoration Advisory Board. This is a board that works not only on base, but the surrounding jurisdictions to look at mitigation cleanup of current and past properties that either through the years have been contaminated or have been vacated and needs to be cleaned up for sale to the community. One of the things that they look at is essentially putting together a plan for the restoration and cleanup of those parcels. For example, they've looked at some parcels in Fairborn, some in Beavercreek throughout the years. I was advised that the rep for this committee was Mr. Little, and this is why, and apparently has been representing Beavercreek Township for several years on this board. Obviously, they're ready to move forward with another meeting here in March. My questions to Wright Pat, first question was, does it have to be an elected official? He said it does not, it just needs to be a representative from Beavercreek Township. I don't have, really, Wright Pat is supposed to send me the dates. They're just trying to look for some possible dates in March to meet in regards to moving forward with the advisory committee. It is currently switching from, I believe, Restoration Advisory Board to Environmental Advisory Board, so they're going to redo all their bylaws and everything, so they're looking to become a little more active this year.
Richard had been on from the beginning, and when he left the Board of Trustees, he requested if he could continue to represent us on that board and also on the Bikeway Committee. So that was, which we have not heard anything back, but he was officially agreed to by the board at the time that he could stay on as the representative, and that's why he's coming up at this point.
Would it fall more in line, do you think, as far as have yourself, the administrator, on that council, or more from a zoning standpoint?
Either one would be fine, because we're talking about different parcels in different jurisdictions, because this is a committee that's made up of the entire region, pretty much anybody that is associated or has an interest with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So, I mean, we have some Clark County board members as well to the north, as well as all the jurisdictions.
We have to do anything with hazardous waste.
It does. It does look at hazardous waste.
Does hazardous waste come under fire?
Yeah. Well, hazmat response would, but I don't know, but mitigation is not really, the planning
We're
of
talking
it.
about property cleanup.
Yeah, we're talking more property cleanup and vacated property that the base is looking at selling, so.
Just base properties.
Yeah.
Zoning, I think, is the proper place.
I'd be happy, or zoning, I have not talked to Ed about it.
That's fire.
Okay, I guess I would move to have our township administrator be our primary representative to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Environmental Restoration Advisory Committee.
Or his delegate. The delegate.
Yeah, that'd be fine, or his designate.
Or his
It was his
designated.
designate.
Designate.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, second.
Ms. Graff?
Yes.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Well, obviously, we do have another one, it sounds like, as the Bikeway Committee as well. I do remember Mr. Little making a presentation either a year early.
A number of years ago
2 years
about
ago,
maybe
potentially.
increasing money, but we never heard back from
Right,
that.
we never heard from the committee. So that would be another
I
one.
think you have
that-
to check with Christabel Bednar. I think it goes through the Park Recreation.
That's correct. And this one, I would say, because of our development and everything else, this one would fall to zoning.
Okay, but let's see if we need
Make that
to.
motion.
If we need to do such, if they still meeting. I don't think they've met in years.
I was contacted last year in regards to, and I think I might have put, they're becoming a little more active in developments in regards to trying to build some of these bikeways. to connect to the major arteries that are throughout the county. So, and they, Beavercreek Bikeway Committee, and I don't know how they're associated with the other, but they're you know, they're really involved in the factory US 35 interchange in regards to making sure that there's bikeways.
I think what the major thrust at one point it has been, and what is ongoing, is the maintenance. And originally, we had sufficient funds that were available, like some contracts, I think, with the transportation corridor contracts that took care of the maintenance. I think the Park Recreation and Board, the department, has applied, I think seeing them on the MVRPC list, for resurfacing of the bikeway that was not the part that the city of Beavercreek applied for and got their funds for and resurfaced their piece. So I think it's the resurfacing and the cost of it. If they get the grant through MVRPC, probably there wouldn't be a request. But if we want it maintained, and we have, I don't know how much, 3 miles through the township? I don't even know exactly what our portion is.
We're pretty close.
That we own, we have to decide if we are going to participate at some point in the continued maintenance.
Well, I think that was kind of what stopped it the last time, is that certain jurisdictions were opting in and
Yes,
others were opting
exactly.
out, and so they were, I mean, I think that might have.
Yeah, so I think we need to know what that board is doing, and if they do need a designee, and what the process is.
We will look into it.
Because we have to be concerned about the liability of making sure that's in reasonable condition, because we have people using it all the time, and it's our property, and therefore we have a liability.
We'll find out whether they're meeting.
Another small piece of information with regard to this, perhaps. The director of the Department of Parks and Trails announced that she attended the Regional Planning and Coordinating Commission meeting of the whole last week and announced that a grant had been received through MVRPC for revisiting of the open space plan. And I'm making an assumption here, but I think that would include bikeways and other park-like uses within the county. The case she was making to RPCC was that if the county speaks with one voice in terms of being represented on in an open space planning process, and also approving such a plan when the plan is developed, then a representation within the scope of the plan and future developments that follow from the plan are enhanced. And so RPCC at that point decided on some membership. Mr. Paxton, if you want to add to that, you were there. So this, I guess my only point is that my participation on the bike committee also dovetails with the parks and trails wanting to participate in the open space planning process as well. So they may end up being one and the same, I don't know.
Good. We'll look into it, and if we need to make an appointment,
Okay.
I'll bring it back.
Special meeting requests.
Yes, Board, the next item on the agenda is to request a special meeting to discuss various topics listed, and also give you a tour with recommendations on some building configurations, and present all the research that we've completed in regards to the zoning fee schedule. I would like to schedule that sometime next week, if at all possible, with the board and elected officials' schedule.
Were you originally looking for this Thursday or next Thursday? Was that something different?
I think I put out Monday next week.
Monday night, in the afternoon, 1 o'clock, I think you head down there.
Yeah,
That's it.
The 9th?
I have something Monday. If we could do Wednesday, Thursday, I could do.
Wednesday, I can't do. I have 2 board meetings that afternoon.
Thursday and Friday, I'm in Maryland.
Okay.
I could do this Thursday at 1 o'clock.
I can do, I should be back from MVRPC by then. But I could do Monday afternoon, too.
Can you be ready by Thursday at 1 o'clock?
We're still putting together a report and everything for,
Okay, I'll move my doctor appointment on Monday. Why do we do Monday?
Okay,
I can
so
do
Monday
Monday.
at 1 o'clock then?
What is Monday, the 9th?
9th, yeah. And here, we'll meet here.
yes, here, we'll,
1 PM.
Yeah.
That works for you?
1 PM?
Yep. And Ms. Aaron's, that works for you?
Yeah, I'll reschedule. Thank you.
Okay, Human Resources.
thank you, Board. The next 4 items on the agenda are biweekly reports. If there's any questions in regards to HR, zoning, IT, or road?
Is there any questions on HR, just to start with that one? Yeah, no.
No questions?
Anything on
the
zoning?
reports?
Nothing. And on IT? Yeah. On roads, what did we end up as far as a cost on this project out here? As opposed to what we budgeted?
It's in your packet on page 39.
All right. I remember reading
The
it.
last poll, I have $4,967.
Okay, we approved 7,500. Good. Thank you.
75.
567.
It was 48, or 4967
49.67.
out of 7,500. Thank you. Anything else on roads? We'll move on to
Is it all
fire.
working there?
No.
Hopefully it'll be done by Wednesday, weather permitting.
It's a cold, wet ditch right now.
Well, and we got to thank them today. They're out there working, and I thought it was our crews. Actually, I was meeting with Mr. Parks, and he was actually removing all the snow for us to hopefully get some work done this week on the project.
All right, so moving on to fire.
Thank you, Board. First item in the agenda is to surplus and replace the treadmills. Obviously, last meeting we moved forward with some replacements, and now we're here to replace the treadmills, or surplus them, I'm sorry.
Carol, to do it, or you?
I move to approve, which one is
Is there a resolution here?
resolution to, according to section, Ohio Revised Code, section 505.10, declaring property to be obsolete or unfit for use for which it was acquired. So I move to approve the declaring of surplus of 5 Nordic Track treadmills as not needed for public use and declare the equipment obsolete or unfit for the use for which it was acquired.
Second.
Discussion? No? Ms. Graf?
Yes?
Mr. Paxson?
Yes.
Mr. Kreutz?
Yes.
Now therefore be resolved, the Board of Trustees favorably pass the above resolution.
Thank you,
Move on
Board.
to staffing levels.
Yes, due to the recent decision by the Board of Township Trustees, we are recommending to modify the authorized staffing levels to match what was discussed and decided on at the last meeting.
Okay, I make a motion to support this resolution.
You could just say to approve the resolution to approve the modified
Yeah, it'd be the staff.
staffing level, because I'll cut and paste all that, dude.
Staff level, okay. Basically eliminates the career position?
Courier and summer interns.
Summer interns.
Seasonal interns, I'm sorry, not summer interns, seasonal interns.
Okay.
We are just interns, and when we start, the program we looked at last year, we most likely will be moving forward with this year. Obviously, last year we waited on the Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office, and they didn't get back to us in a timely manner. So we'll still have interns in regards to other projects, but just not in the authorized staffing in regards to seasonal interns.
Okay.
Okay, the headings were wrong.
So we have a motion to approve the authorized staffing levels as presented. Do a second?
Seconded.
Okay.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Ms. Graf.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes. EMS billing?
Thank you, Board. This is another topic that we've had some discussion about in regards to EMS collections. Staff is recommending that we move forward with the Office of Shared Services, which is through the state of Ohio. And they do the collections for us in regards to hard billing, as discussed in the Novak report. One of the things that they do is if they are successful in collecting that money, they collect 6%. We did reach out to other companies and look at their fee structure, as well as companies that work with our current EMS billing company, which I want to say is Med 3000. Chief, it is their new name?
McKesson is what they're going by.
McKesson. Yes, thank you. So now one of the things that we discussed with legal is there are some concerns with the MOU that we need clarification with the state. This is a state MOU that they have with other jurisdictions within the state of Ohio. I'll let Ms. Frick talk to some of the concerns in regards to the MOU. What I would recommend today is if we want to move forward with this, and I recommend we move forward with doing business with the Ohio Shared Service program in regards to our hard billing, that you allow Ms. Frick and I to work with the state on the modified changes for the MOU.
You may not be aware, but our firm, one of the separate practices we do is we represent collection agencies all over the country. And so what I did is I had one of the attorneys in our office just looking at this from the perspective of just quickly, is there something in here that you have a red flag about right away, because you guys deal with this all the time? And they had a concern. He pointed out some different things. Some of them are concerns more of the agency itself, but could ultimately be an issue for the township. But most importantly, where they talk about making the phone calls, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act specifically allows for liability of the original debt holder. And so because of that, we wanted to add a provision that is basically an indemnification provision that in the event of some TCPA violation, that they would agree to indemnify the township for that. And that was the primary one. There was a couple other just general questions I had for them because of the vagueness of some of the things on there, but that was the main provision we wanted to see added to this.
And they've agreed to that, or they're still working through that?
Well, we would have to work it out with their attorney. I don't know if you
It's
have.
been forwarded to them, we just haven't heard back yet.
Yeah, I provided them some language.
Ms. Frick into direct contact with their attorney.
Okay.
So this group takes care of the normal collections that we've been doing, our soft billing collections, and then the out of township jurisdiction hard billing requests? Or is that a separate group that we hired to do those?
For the soft billing, everything is handled through Med 3000. For anything
Okay.
we do not collect, would go to the Ohio Shared Services.
Okay,
They would
so that's
attempt
the one
to-
we're doing
yes.
now, is for
They
the...
would attempt to collect on our behalf. If they are successful, then obviously they would get the 6%, which looking at the comparables, is a pretty good deal for us in co-oping. Speaking with the gentleman that Mr. Paxton had introduced me to at the state, they're starting to do this for other jurisdictions throughout Ohio. So this is nothing new for them. Now, they do plan on, as this, Ohio Shared Services is going to expand over the next several years. This was kind of the program that was created out of the state funding cuts to say, you know, we're going to do a little more shared services with our local jurisdictions. So there are many things on the horizons that they are going to put in place. They start with the state agencies first. Once it's successful and up and running with the state agencies, then they expand it to local jurisdictions like we see in this case here.
So you need a motion then. With the understanding that you and Ms. Frick will be clearing up any of the questions and concerns that you have with it.
Can we add on to the end of the motion pending legal approval like we have in the past?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I
Chief,
make
you
a
okay with
motion to approve the following: to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Ohio Shared Services, the EMS billing collections service, in the amount of 6% contingency fee on collected amounts, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board pending legal approval.
Second.
Ms. Groff?
Yes.
Mr. Paxson?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Blue card.
Next item on the agenda and in your packet on page 42 and 43 is the Blue Card certification and training program. There's a lot of information in your packet regarding this. So one thing I would like to point out, some additional information that's not in the packet that has been discussed. This obviously would, and this is in the report, this will take the place of sending our select train the trainer staff members over to FDIC. This will be all company officers, all officers within the organization will be trained, and it's a certification program. One of the things I'd like to point out, though, is this is just not Beavercreek Township that's looking at this. It's some of our partners who we respond with on a mutual aid basis. City of Fairborn Fire Department is looking at getting certified, and Xenia is actually looking into the program, so that at least the 3 major fire departments in this region are going after this program. What's neat about this program is it's trained to a certain level, depending on certain type of hazards. It is certified, and there is lab work to be completed in regards to not only classroom but some simulator type performance. And I'll let the chief speak to a little more about the program if there's any questions.
And what level are our officers trained to right now?
They're not trained to any national standard other than well, not to any national standard. We have an internal standard that's been developed over time, but none of that matches the national standard.
They don't meet the national standard?
Which national standard?
NFPA, fire officer national standard?
None of our folks are, we do not have a program and never have had a program for training folks to the NFPA standard, and it's not been adopted.
Well, what would happen if we looked into that standard and NFPA standard and compare it to this? This is a certification program, right?
Yes.
So if we looked into the NFPA fire officer standard and trained to that.
There is no credentialing for the NFPA officer standard that I know of. You can get classes in it. For example, you can attend Sinclair and take a class, but there is no credentialing standard.
I think there is. There is. I may be mistaken, but
I'd have to pursue it.
I don't know about.
check into that.
I don't know about fire officer credentialing.
It seems to me, I may be mistaken.
Yeah, I don't.
It seems to me there's an NFPA fire officer level in there.
There is a standard, but the NFPA does not credential anybody. So
It's a standard, but to meet that standard, you have to have credentials to meet that standard, and there's training involved in meeting that standard, though.
there is a standard, and it does require training to meet it, yes, but there's no credential to certify that it has or has not been met.
Oh, I was just saying is maybe if we look at that, if we're looking at a fire officer training program, is that what we're looking at here?
Well, yeah, so this, obviously this year, this would take place at FDIC, where we normally have staff officers become train the trainer and bring this back. This would be a little different concept where all our officers are sitting in the room, attending the same training, and receiving a certification after the program is complete. And this would be a standard, everyone getting the same thing. Now, what you see in some of the quotes there and personnel costs includes covering some of our staff while they're in class.
So the overtime?
Yes.
This is a combination of first online training, and then what's the 24-hour certification lab? Where'd they actually go in person to the
Yes,
lab?
it is 3 8-hour days that they are in the lab doing certifications run by an instructor.
Where is that lab?
Here, we would be bringing it here.
You'd bring, the lab comes to us, essentially, so,
Okay.
okay.
So the online they can do, obviously online, as a group?
No, individually.
Individually.
It would be done on duty, so that would not, there would be no overtime cost involved in the online portion.
And then when they complete that, then you'll do the lab?
We would schedule the lab for probably at the middle to end of November of this year. And yes, it would complete the lab basically as a shift so that you would have all 4 lieutenants and the battalion chief from the shift going through the lab together, and then the chief officers will work in with
So the 24 hours is not per person. It's 8 hours per person, but it'd be 3 times.
no, it is 24 hours per person. It's 3 8-hour days per person, which is why the overtime cost is as high as it is, because we have to cover all the shifts to be able to go through 3 days of 8 hours of training. I think I said that.
Do we have a motion to approve? We can continue discussing.
If you can do it, I'll do it.
Motions are on page 43 of your packet.
Let me get the right one here.
Let's go ahead and make the motion, then we can
Oh, I
continue
make a motion,
discussion.
yeah, that we approve the,
There's 2 pieces to it, though.
That one.
Yeah, there are 2 motions.
okay. I had some questions on this, and so
Do you want to make
I'll
the
make the
motion?
motion so I can ask the questions.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the purchase request 06923 to Blue Card Command online training subscriptions in the amount of $6,950. And authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second?
Okay.
Discussion.
Yeah, that NFPA standard is 1021. Fire officer standard. Since we quote NFPA a lot, we follow NFPA, and it is a standard we follow. I would just like to see if this plugs into that, okay? To make sure that if, when we train toward a standard, it's a national standard, to make sure our officers are getting what that's.
Yes, this credentialing does go towards, I believe, Fire Officer 1 and 2. I don't think it goes to 3 and 4, and it's also NIMS compliant. So it does train to the NIMS standard as well, just for type 4 and 5 incidents as opposed to the major incidents that we typically associate NIMS for.
This training is in place of what we did last year?
Yes, this is in place of the FDIC training, in which we spend just about the same amount of money, but we send a much smaller group of people.
How many do we send to that typically?
Typically, we send 6 people.
6, okay.
And that training is 1 week of training for those 6 people, then they bring that information back. Obviously, the advantage to this is not only are we training all of our officers, we're also getting a credential for it, so a certification that we do have to maintain long-term, and I discussed the long-term costs in here, they're relatively minor, all things considered. And we're able to maximize the training because we don't have the transportation or travel costs associated with sending people to FDIC. So all the money is going straight to training, including bringing the lab here, as we mentioned earlier.
And how many will be trained?
It'll be 19 officers, including the public safety director.
In the 3.26, that annual cost for renewal, is that per officer, or is that for the
No,
group?
that's program total.
That's program total. Okay, so once we make this investment in that core group of individuals, our maintenance costs, if you look at over a 5-year period, if you sent 6 people to FDIC training, and you compare that cost to this cost over the same 5-year period, this is going to be fractional.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, the FDIC, there's no maintenance cost to that. That's just a
But if you send
convention.
6 people, right, if you send 6 people every year for 5
This-
years,
Yeah, for this amount.
it would be 30,000 if it was the exact same.
And you still
That-
only train
that's-
6 people per year.
Correct.
I've attended similar training that they're, after looking into this at the National Fire Academy, and the value of the scenario I speak highly of, because they're going to put our officers in the exercise based on their level within the organization through some intense incident command type situations that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Now, there are other classes that are above and beyond this offered at the Emergency Management Institute and the National Fire Academy that deal with the big events, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, and those type of things. This is to focus more on what our crews from chief down to lieutenant are going to be dealing with the majority of time.
So that's 99% of what the department does.
Probably more like 99.9%. I mean, it's,
Okay.
yes, this is our bread and butter calls. Everything from single engine up to commercial structure fire that we would typically handle. So, yeah, like Mr. Serif mentioned, if you get into tornadoes, if you get into multi-jurisdictional, if you get into multi-structure, then you're moving up a level above this. But all those core skills follow along to that upper level. Because as I mentioned earlier, not only does it train to the NFPA standard, but it also trains to the NIMS standard. And NIMS is what handles this large-scale multi-jurisdictional incidents, active shooter incidents, those types of things.
And there's, if I understand this correctly, the lab is the final component to credentialing. There's no value in approving one without the other.
Correct. It is a program. It's just offered by 2 different vendors. The online vendor is one, and then the on-site vendor is a second.
Okay.
And it's Loveland Sims is the provider for the on-site, and they actually have a package. They will bring everything up here and set it up for us to do it on-site for the training.
Yeah, from comprehensive standpoint, is there anything that FDIC provides that this does not? Is there any?
It's
Is there?
an oranges question in that FDIC offers a larger palette of course opportunities of different topics. This is very specific. But the specificity is what's the advantage, especially at this particular time, what we're trying to accomplish. So we're trying to get all of our officers at one comprehensive level to make sure that they're all operating the same when it comes to emergency incidents.
What I'm chasing, and you kind of answered it, but sometimes when you eat an orange, you go back and say, well, we're like an apple too. And so trying to make sure that this is intended to be the replacement to FDIC.
For this year.
What about next year?
Next year, we will look to say, what training opportunities should we pursue? And FDIC would be back on the potential for next year if there was course offerings that apply to what we're trying to accomplish.
Because in my mind, I'm looking at it as a replacement of, you're looking at it as a replacement of in this budget cycle.
Yes, this is a one-time replacement that gets us a certain thing that we can then maintain long-term. Next year, we would obviously want to reevaluate. Our training needs don't stop. What we're trying to do is be smarter about how we evaluate what our different training opportunities and options are and what we're trying to accomplish. So next year, yeah, FDIC would be back on as a possible training option, as well as any of the other ones that we're branching out and looking at. So.
Okay.
And here's where I'm coming from on this. Well, number one, we have the ability to provide all of our own training to our own people without any cost, any outside cost period. We do have that ability. So anything that we send outside is what I consider a luxury, because it's above really what we can do to our own. So that is why I'm interested in seeing if this dings into the NFPA standard, because that is the standard we follow. And we refer to over and over as a national standard, and all departments refer to and try to meet if they possibly can. And there are many categories. Most of them say most of, a lot of departments cannot meet all the standards. But anyway, I look at I think our officers ought to be operating on the same level anyway. That should be part of the training. So I would see if this plugs into the NFPA 1021, all fire officer standard. And if it doesn't, then I would just question doing this. This is put on by Loveland Sims Fire Department, is that what it is?
They are the proctors for the on-site lab.
Okay. Who puts that on down there? Is that?
They have certified instructors. I don't know specifically who they are, but I know they've been certified for it.
Okay.
That is one of the long-term possibilities, is that we look to certify our own people to instruct, but then we get into is it cheaper to provide the service or cheaper to maintain instructors?
Well, Loveland Sims is a private fire company.
They're very aggressive private.
Private fire company.
Yeah, they are a private fire company, but they are, I mean, they're held to the same standards as a public. You know, but they are one of the aggressive. I mean, their chiefs are always in every national magazine that I've ever looked at, including one of their, I believe, deputy chiefs, who teaches over at FDIC every year. You know, the other advantage of this as well is that this is not only going to, looking at Beavercreek, but this, you know, in regards to our mutual aid companies that are coming in, you know, Fairborn's going to go through this training, and hopefully Xenia goes through this training. I know this would be a valuable training for at least the 3 biggest fire departments in this county.
Since I don't know too much about the various standards, would these courses, or this particular course, as Mr. Pax was indicating, sort of lead to or check off some of the NFPA standards that are suggested?
That's what I was trying to see if I can find a quick reference. I am 99% certain that yes, they contribute. The Blue Card program teaches the items that are required for NFPA, as I mentioned earlier, 1021 levels 1 and 2, officers level 1 and 2. Level 1 is your entry-level company officer. Think of a lieutenant in our organization. Level 2 is going to be a captain battalion chief. Level 3 is a deputy chief. Level 4 is a fire chief. I can confirm that, but I'm 99% sure off the top of my head that that is the way it's set up. The other thing that Mr. Paxton brought up is doing our internal training. We certainly can and certainly do our own internal training and have for years and years. 2 things about that. One is in a performance audit, it was specifically identified that we need to look for comprehensive training programs that make sure that we're all hitting the same standard, which this does, and obviously what we've been doing in-house was lacking enough for them to bring that up as a specific point. And the other thing is what we cannot do internally, even if we taught the same material, we cannot credential, we cannot certify. So we are not, our instructors are not at that level. We could potentially get instructors to that level, but again, there's a cost and an overhead to doing that and maintaining them at that level. So if that's something that the board would like us to do, we can obviously pursue that. But that doesn't change. We're going to have to train somebody to get there if that is a worthwhile training, and I would posit that it is in fact a worthwhile training.
But even if you went the train the trainer route and got someone certified to be the trainer, you still could not provide the lab component.
No, the lab component, as I understand it, is restricted to people who are certified to proctor, and right now that the area proctor is Loveland Sims. Whether we could get our own site license, we have not explored.
Right.
Possibly that would be an option. And that may be an option, for example, if we decide at some point we want to bring all firefighters, not just officers, to that level, we may look at, does it now make sense to have our own training if we're taking the entire staff?
Okay. Is there an urgency to get this done that would make us, is there a reason we can't do an overlay to see how this aligns to NFPA? Because of timing?
There's no timing issue, it's just the additional work. So if the board, are you suggesting a gap analysis similar to what we did for NFPA versus the wellness?
I know which one you're referencing, yeah. I'm just asking a question of what's the urgency and the timing on this? And if we have time to...
When's FDIC chief?
FDIC FDIC is, if we were going to do FDIC instead of this, we would have to make the decision today. And we dropped it off, obviously, because we thought that this was a better value for ourselves. If that's the sole concern about the NFPA overlay,
And that's what I'm hearing.
Is if we could make the approval contingent upon verification, and if it is, then move forward. Otherwise we're just bringing back stuff, and we have, that's a pattern we're in right now, where we're bringing a lot of things back with additional work. And if that's what the boards would like, we can certainly do that. It's important enough, we will do it. But if that's the only concern, I'd like to move forward if we can confirm that and just report back to you.
That would be my first concern, is the lines with the NFPA. The second question I have is what would we expect our officers to have out of this that they don't already have now in the way of operations, NIMS, incident command, other than additional training? What could we? No, sounds. What would we expect out of our officers? Will we expect a change in policy across the board and tactics?
Well, that certainly,
would there be,
obviously, that certainly could happen based on the training. I will tell you, the type of training I've attended at the National Fire Academy, I definitely came back and said, we need to redo the policy on this and this and this. Obviously, and that's why you train. You train to a certain level, and based on the current policies and tactics. If this, I'm assuming, Chief, that if this training shows that needs to be a change, that'll be a recommendation to the board on changing a policy, or in regards at department level and the tactics and the incident command
Yeah,
policy.
and I can give you one example we know will come out of this because it's already been discussed, and that is the concept of no good news reporting. So to clear up fireground communications, there's a lot of two-way chatter right now, and one of the things that this particular program pushes is if you are doing the job that you were sent to do and making good progress on it, you don't report that back. You report if there's a problem, if there's a change, or you respond if it's queried, but it eliminates a lot of the additional communications overhead. And like I said, the concept is called good news reporting, and that's something that we'll be implementing if we go through this process. I'm sure there will be other things to help streamline and improve our operations, so that's just one example I know of without having been through the training.
that just sounds like a policy change to me anyway. I mean, like,
Well, obviously,
Well, it's a tactics change.
yeah. And that's something that if we see these deficiencies, and it's not just us, maybe it's mutual aid practices with our other jurisdictions. I mean, it's obviously, how long has Fairborn been looking at this?
Fairborn was looking at it before we started. Our folks made a site visit to explore it with Fairborn. I don't know what they're looking to implement, if it's this budget year, if they're looking for next budget year. But that's one of the things that if it becomes a common platform between us, Fairborn, Xenia, I believe Kettering already has folks trained to it. What we would look at is saying that for incident management teams, this becomes the baseline. So not only do we have internal coherence with the fire department, but we're working the same externally with our neighbors when we deal with mutual aid, which obviously is going to be a bigger issue with the reduced staffing since we made the transition from part-time to full-time department.
I'd like to call the question.
You have any other questions?
Any other?
no, that's,
Is this something new? Just a question. I mean, is it brand new, so everybody wants to jump on it, or?
It's new to the area. It's started on the west coast and southwest, and it's moving this way. So,
Okay.
State of Indiana, I believe, is very big into it. Ohio is getting into it.
Okay, so to quickly clarify, this would be in place of FDIC training for 2015. In 2016, you may come back with a request to attend FDIC and/or something else.
Yes, sir.
Okay, with whatever dollars are available at that time. The renewal cost on this is just under $1368, and that's a site renewal. So for as many officers as we train in this setting, it's a two-piece training, and your recommendation is based on that there is no known conflict with NFPA.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We
And
can verify that not
Okay.
only is there no conflict, but that it supports it. And I'm 99% certain that it does.
okay, if you can call, please.
Mr. Paxton?
No.
Ms. Graff?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
There's one additional motion in there.
Second motion.
I move to approve the,
Page 43.
Second.
what? Purchase request 06922 to Loveland Community Firefighters Association for a 3-day certification labs in the amount of $6,650, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Graff?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mr. Paxton?
No.
Coordinated apparatus equipment and outfitting project.
Thank you, Board. Essentially, this is just a budget awareness information in your packet. We will be, I believe, next meeting, moving forward with outfitting the new medic, as well as the equipment for the Tahoe that both have been approved by the Board of Township Trustees for purchase. There's a lot of information there. We want to make sure you get the information out, review it, so that if there's any questions before next meeting, we'll have those prepared for you. For the purchase request, both for the Tahoe and computers, the new medic, I'm sorry, as well as retrofitting 2 of our medics.
Okay.
And on page 54 is the special report to the board in regards to the special response location. This was requested by the board to see where we're at with the project. Chief will be able to answer any questions in regards to the project.
I read your report over the weekend. I had no questions for it. Mr. Paxton, did you have any questions?
No, no questions.
None? Ms. Graff?
Nope.
Any questions to the chief's biweekly report?
The new medic, just had a question. When has that been delivered? When is it scheduled for delivery?
April, May timeframe? April, May. Yeah. The chassis is actually in at the factory, and they're waiting on final approval for the bill.
Okay.
I would guesstimate based off of our history.
Okay. And so refresh me, when that unit comes in, we're rotating another unit to reserve, and we're taking the current reserve
And surplus.
and surplusing it out.
Yes, sir.
And so as far as the look-ahead item prior, which is also in some of your information, as far as repurposing anything that we have in the current reserve, are we able to do that? Or we're going to move that to the new reserve and then outfit the new medic with all new equipment?
The equipment that is looking to be replaced is end of life, either for mechanical issues or is no longer supported, and there's a serious concern about failure. Because I believe it's the modems that fail. The things that can be repurposed are being repurposed. I think the radios are being reused, and I think the computers are being reused. I think it's the modems that are being replaced, if I remember correctly. I don't have all the details in my head, I apologize. This is a fairly complex project. consistent with.
I was just curious, yeah, it was-
We could probably come up with a little crosswalk that has what's being replaced, what's being.
Just the question is obviously, and the assumption is that you're maximizing the repurposing of anything we can. So that's the main gist of what I'm looking for, is to make sure that we're not surplusing anything that is usable.
And
that's part of the process you go through. I understand that. I just need to ask the question.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Bi-weekly report? Either? Mr. Paxson?
No.
Legal advisor?
Nothing to,
Trustees? Mr. Paxson?
I appreciate the message we got from our township administrator from the investment committee, and I think we need to, evidently, it said something to the effect that we need a recommendation to give to how much to increase our investment, or...
Actually, I didn't have time to get back with Alex. That motion's incorrect. It was, the trustees were never involved. It was, they left full discretion to the fiscal office.
That's,
So it's,
So there should be
It's just me.
additional, so I assume that we'll see additional happening
Yep.
with the recommendation. And I did notice that we did get a significant amount of money from an early disbursement. It was well over between $1 and $2 million. So we have in our funds, rather than the county getting interest there, we're getting interest in our account. So I hope that's what we're getting interest, if it went into
it was a good meeting.
an interest-bearing
it was a good
account.
meeting. The committee met, Ms. Aarons was there, Mr. Brown, myself were there. It was a great discussion, a lot of questions and answers. The committee felt comfortable where we were going. Did pass the motion to recommend that, and they didn't want to set amount. They wanted to, because we discussed about having money liquid for obviously the bills and payroll. So they kind of left it open-ended to the fiscal office to say, let's take some of that money out of the Huntington account and move it into Morgan Stanley. And they're going to meet again next month, and then we'll continue to have updates. But it was a very good discussion. We had all but one member, and it was a conflict just that came up that day. They were...
Okay, with understanding that we have to have sufficient funds to pay the bills and to do the payroll and this laddering, does Morgan Stanley have those kinds of instruments? Because from what I read that we do have, most of them are CDs, which are not 1 month, 2 month, 3 months, but seem to be longer CDs than that. So does Morgan Stanley provide instruments that would allow
Number
a
one, there are
monthly
no,
distribution?
yeah, number one, there are no CDs. And number two, we are laddered with Morgan Stanley.
And there was...
Are they monthly ladders, so that would come out, we'd have money coming in every month
No.
from that?
No, not monthly.
And there were a lot of questions from the board in regards to Morgan Stanley and laddering. They felt comfortable with the way it was laid out, so that we are getting things that are coming to mature, that if we need it, obviously, it's there for us.
We have to remain liquid, and we can't go longer than 5 years.
Right.
So,
Understand.
but also, the short term, you're more risk as well. So it's,
How
there's
would
more
you-
fluctuate.
Okay, let's say it wouldn't be at more risk.
Not risk, but it's more fluctual. It's more, how am I not
Maybe
getting
the
my
interest
words?
might not be as high with the short than the,
Right.
but there could be the flexibility of having the funds that we don't need for immediate use, because we get in two major bulks from the property tax, that it could be in such a fashion increasing the amount of interest we get on those funds, understanding that we need the liquidity to meet our bills on our regular cycle.
Right, even a 1 to 3 year duration bond is going to pay more than what we're making in checking or money market. So I had two, not concerns, but comments. One would be a concern, one's more of a comment. and I'll consider myself a novice, but with at least 15 years experience in the bond market. The number one, I would encourage us to look beyond Morgan Stanley and not to put all of our eggs in one basket. Not that those bonds could be, they're portable. Those investments can be moved to any brokerage firm. We own my understanding at least is that we own the security behind it, and we can port those anywhere if we were upset with Morgan Stanley at any point in time. But it would be interesting to compare, it's always interesting at least to compare the recommendations of a second party. And I don't know, I'm not giving you a name to go research, but at least to go out and get a fresh look at what's available. I would encourage us to do it sooner than later. We missed last year. We're looking for general fund dollars. This is a way to get some, and at minimal risk. So,
Not much though, I mean, on our,
well, we sat in that meeting and we said that we made $35,000 last year, and if we doubled the amount we invested, we could have doubled the $35,000. So $35,000 is a lot.
I just don't want you to
compared
get it
nothing.
into your head that that's gonna solve your problems down the road.
It didn't say it would solve the problems, but it's a component of solving the problem. We have to increase revenue or
decreases the-
decrease
yeah,
expenses.
right.
So if we can do both in equal amounts, then we double the net gain. The second piece of it, so the first piece was just maybe look beyond Morgan Stanley. And then the second piece was the science behind, and I have to presume we're doing that. The letter or the note said a significant amount of money, and I understand they were reluctant to name a certain amount of money.
Well,
It's
they
not their position. I understand all of that. But typically there's a scientific process you go through to do a cash flow projection and understand what your reserves need to be over a 3 to 5 year period. And I assume we're doing that. That we're not taking just a $3 million block and saying we'll take $3 million of our $12 million and put it in there. So those are my comments, and that's normally what you would do to project your reserves, what you need, and cover your contingencies.
I wish your assumptions were correct.
I don't know that they're not. I'm just making up.
Graff like to expand. What do you want to say, Ms. Graff?
I don't believe we've made a scientific study of the income, the outgo, and how we have the flow of the revenues that we need, as you have suggested should be done. I don't think that has ever been done, because if it had been done, we wouldn't be sitting in the same place we were a year and a half ago. But that's just my opinion, obviously. But I don't see, and I've never seen a scientific study showing the income outcome and how it's all flowing and where it's flowing and when it's flowing and what the needs are at any particular point in time, other than I do review what we get every 2 weeks and know that we pay $280,000 in payroll every 2 weeks, give or take a little bit, and our bills can be up to $250,000 or $300,000, usually a little lower. So there is some flexibility in there, but I don't, and I have not made, nor have I seen, a scientific study that you have suggested we have.
What happened a year and a half ago that you were talking
Pardon me?
about? What happened a year and a half ago that you were talking about?
That's the
That
first
something
time
like
that we
that
took the
happened?
$3 million and
Right.
made the baby step into Morgan Stanley.
Right,
Before that, it was either a checking account
right.
or money market. And before it even went money market, it was all in an no interest checking account, for which I have been upset for many years.
All I know is when I got here in 2006, that it was in the checking account, we had a CD, and that was it.
Okay.
And I will tell you, the reason why we have migrated this direction, and it's taken a while, which government typically does, we were making great money on the money that we had in checking. That's when interest rates are really high and return was high. Now, obviously, the economy is different, so
Exactly.
we've had to go in different directions. But you being on the board 30 years know
Not quite that.
that that's it's not that there was any mismanagement or that we weren't doing anything improper, that it was just, this is the economy. So we've taken the right steps in the right direction. And yes, while it was a baby step, I take full responsibility for the baby step because I'm responsible and it's taxpayer dollars. So now you decided you wanted to have this investment committee. It's not by law, it's not per Ohio Revised Code. Perfect thing. I'm happy to open up the books, talk to them. I was happy to be at that meeting. But if I need to be comfortable that what we're doing with taxpayer dollars is the right thing, and that obviously at the end of the day, I'm more than happy to look at other vendors, and I'll take that duly noted.
Very good.
Yep, like I said, my comments weren't that we were not doing it, it's just that when I looked at that letter, the commentary would be, A, look at someone else and compare what's being offered, and B, don't just go with another lump sum of money, do some scientific approach to calculating what you're gonna need over what period of time, because maybe it's another 1 million, maybe it's another 7 million. And we did miss last year as far as generating dollars. I've said all along, and you and I have had a friendly exchange over, the township is not meant to be a profit generating entity, and there's a difference between generating a profit, and you could also argue, and I do argue, that we are stewards of taxpayer dollars, and it's our obligation to stretch those dollars as far as we can. And if we have mechanisms available to us that are safe, proven, and allowable under statute, then we should take those approaches. And I think you agree with that. Right?
Absolutely, we agree. My frustration is 8 months ago, we came back to you and said that we wanted to move more money, and that's when you said no.
No, I never said no.
Yes, because you guys wanted the investment committee.
No,
that's what you wanted.
No.
I don't think the offer was ever on the table last year.
I'll find those minutes just for you guys.
Please do, because I know we wanted to do the investment committee last year. And there was pushback on that, and then there was language debate over the committee structure and how we did that and who was participating in it, and then Mr. Paxson insisted that
we'll
no
go back,
trustees.
it's fine.
Yeah,
We're at a place.
I have the gift and the curse of a photographic memory, so it's hard. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think the committee recommended what it sounds like you want, and I know at least, I think what we collectively all want, which is we want to invest that money, make as much as we can within the conditions that we're allowed to invest it, put it back into the general fund, at the same time look for ways to reduce expenditure.
Yep.
And then double and move forward. Amen.
My only concern with the whole thing is that we had some unexpected expenditures with this whole annexation thing, and that we don't put away too much money and have to wind up getting it out and taking a hit on it, and it would defeat our purpose of making investments. I don't know how you can, project some of that stuff that was unexpected. So
I think you could probably go 70% of your reserve and keep a 30% contingency. That's my own opinion.
perhaps.
That's what you would.
You have it invested in such a way that you can reduce your investment whenever you need and have the flexibility to use it as needed. So those are options that need to be investigated.
Pretty sure me and my job with my degree, I can figure it out. But thanks for your input.
You're welcome. Second one.
With that, anything from the fiscal officer?
Nope. Oh, wait, yes. The minutes were complete. However, you did not approve them because none of you got back to me on the last. You came out of executive session, you made a motion. I got none of that verbiage, so that's why the minutes weren't here today. So at some point, somebody please needs to let me know what you did.
Okay, I thought Ms. Graff replied to him. I did not. I can send you a reply.
So
No problem.
they'll be on the next time, but
That's
I
fine.
know you've already seen them. I just, in my response, that was what I didn't have.
Okay. Legal invoices?
Or just one?
You have it right here. Do you want to do it?
Make a motion to approve invoice number 2687858 to Taft, Stetenis and Hollister for $7,474.
I think it only
Just
is.
this amount, right?
Just the,
We approved the first round.
yeah, the first amount's already been-
$1,675.
Second,
Mr. Paxson?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
When is that letter dated, please?
It is dated February 20th.
Thank you.
I thought it was a 2015. This time I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session under Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, to consider compensation of a public employee.
So moved.
Ms. Graff? Yes. Mr. Paxson?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.